When I finally bought the mountain cabin 6 months after my husband passed away, my daughter called and ordered, "Tomorrow, I'm bringing 10 people to film. You'll handle the cooking and cleaning and don't bother us. I'm taking the master bedroom. You can sleep wherever." I didn't argue back. I just said gently, "Okay." She had no idea that the moment she drove into the driveway, what was waiting for her. "Thank you for staying with me. Before I go on, take a second and tell me, where are you watching from right now? Your comment helps me know this story is reaching real people. Also, please note, this story includes some fictionalized elements added for storytelling and educational purposes. Any resemblance to real names or situations is purely coincidental, but the message itself is meant to be meaningful and helpful." The cabin smelled like cedar and wood smoke. I'd only had the keys for a week, but it already felt like mine. The life insurance from Robert's death had paid out $250,000. I'd added $150,000 from our savings money we'd built together over 30 years and bought this place outright. $385,000, paid in full. 3 bedrooms, a wraparound porch, and a view of the Blue Ridge Mountains that took my breath away every morning. Robert would have loved it here. He'd passed in March 6 months ago. Heart attack. No warning. One moment he was planning our retirement, the next he was gone. The grief had been suffocating at first, the kind that makes you forget to eat, forget to sleep, forget that the world is still turning. But somewhere in the fog, I realized I didn't want to stay in that house anymore. Every room reminded me of him. Every corner held a memory I wasn't ready to face. So I bought the cabin, a place where I could start over, a place that was mine. I was unpacking boxes in the kitchen when my phone rang. 6:00 p.m. Friday evening. "Melissa," I answered. "Hi, sweetheart." Her voice was warm at first, sweet even. "Mom, hi, I've been so worried about you." I leaned against the counter, grateful for the concern. "I'm okay, really. The cabin is beautiful. You should come visit sometime." There was a pause. Then her tone shifted. "Actually, that's why I'm calling. I'm coming tomorrow." "Oh," I smiled. "That's wonderful. I'd love to." "I'm bringing 10 people." I stopped smiling. 10, I repeated slowly. "Yeah, friends. Trevor's coming too. We're doing some filming content stuff. You know how it is. Anyway, we'll need you to handle the groceries, make up all the beds, and just stay out of the way. We'll be there most of the weekend. Oh, and I'm taking the master bedroom. You can sleep wherever." I didn't say anything. "Mom, you there?" I stared out the window at the mountains. The sun was dipping below the ridge, casting long shadows across the porch. "Melissa," I said carefully, "that's not really going to work for me." Her voice went cold. "What do you mean it's not going to work? I mean, this is my home. I just moved in. I'm not ready for—" "This is family property, Mom," she interrupted. "Dad would have wanted us all to use it. I have just as much right to be there as you do." I felt something shift in my chest. Not anger, not yet, just awareness. "Melissa, your father left the life insurance to me. I bought this cabin with that money and our savings. It's in my name." "Money he earned," she shot back. "Money that should have been split. You didn't build anything, you just existed. And now you're going to waste it all on some mountain hideaway while the rest of us struggle." The rest of us? Trevor, her husband of 2 years. The man with the expensive suits and the vague job title. The one who always had his hand out. I took a slow breath. "Melissa, I'm not having this conversation. The cabin is mine. If you want to visit, we can talk about it another time. But not tomorrow. Not like this." There was a long silence. When she spoke again, her voice was sharp, calculated. "You're making a mistake, Mom." And then she hung up. I stood there in the kitchen, holding the phone, staring at the screen. The call had lasted 4 minutes. I realized something in that moment. Something I should have seen years ago. This wasn't about a visit. It wasn't about family. It was about control. The silence in the cabin wasn't empty. It was preparation. By 6:15 p.m., I had the community guidelines folder open on the kitchen counter. Carol Henderson had given it to me at closing a thick binder with rules emergency contacts and the property manager's direct line. I'd skimmed it last week, but hadn't paid much attention. Now I read every word. I dialed the number on the inside cover. She picked up on the second ring. "Carol Henderson, Blue Ridge Estates." "Carol, this is Susan Crawford. I closed on 127 Ridgeline Drive last week. Susan, of course. How's the cabin treating you? Her voice was warm, professional, the kind of tone that made you trust her immediately. It's beautiful, but I have a situation I need advice on. I explained it as simply as I could. My daughter had called. She wanted to bring 10 people tomorrow, unannounced, uninvited. I'd said no, but I wasn't sure she'd listen. Carol was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her tone had sharpened. 10 people. Did she say what they'd be doing here? She mentioned helping me unpack, but she also referred to the cabin as family property, as if she had some kind of claim to it. Does she? No, I'm the sole owner. I paid cash at closing. Then let me be very clear, Susan. Carol's words came quickly, now precise. Blue Ridge Estates has a zero-tolerance policy for unregistered guests and unauthorized filming. We had an incident last week. A content creator rented a property and used it as a backdrop for videos without the owner's permission. We shut it down within hours. I exhaled. So if she shows up with 10 people, she's in violation of the board's rules. Maximum overnight occupancy is 6 people, and all guests must be registered at least 48 hours in advance. If your daughter arrives with 10 people and you haven't authorized them, they're trespassing. The word landed like a stone. Trespassing. What do I do if they show up anyway? You don't open the door. You call me and I'll handle it. She paused. Actually, let me make this easier. Officer Davis does his regular patrol through the estates every Saturday at 2 o'clock. It's part of our arrangement with the county. We're a private community, so we pay for extra patrols. I'll make sure he knows to check on your property tomorrow afternoon. You think that's necessary? I think having a marked patrol car in your driveway tends to clarify boundaries for people who might be confused about property rights. Her tone softened slightly. You're not alone in this, Susan. That's what the board is for. I felt something loosen in my chest. Thank you, Carol. One more thing. Change your door codes tonight. If your daughter has ever had access to your keys or knows your usual combinations, change them, just to be safe. After we hung up, I stood in the kitchen for a long moment staring at the binder. Then I walked through the cabin room by room, checking locks. The front door had a digital keypad. I reprogrammed it with a new 6-digit code. The back door had a deadbolt. I turned it twice, testing. I pulled out the closing documents next. Deed, title, insurance, property survey. I spread them across the dining table and read through each page carefully. There it was in black ink. Susan Marie Crawford, sole owner. Parcel number 3847.09.1156. Purchased for $385,000, paid in full. No liens, no co-owners, no family trust. Just my name. I took a photo of the deed with my phone just in case, then filed everything back into the folder. By 10 o'clock, I was exhausted. I brushed my teeth, changed into pajamas, and locked the bedroom door behind me. The mountain air was cool enough that I cracked the window an inch. Wind stirred the pines outside, a low, steady sound. I lay in the dark and thought about tomorrow. Melissa might come. She might not. But if she did, I wouldn't be caught off guard. I was ready. Saturday, September 23rd, 2:17 p.m. I heard the vehicles before I saw them. 3 of them, 2 SUVs and a sedan, pulling into the gravel driveway, engines cutting off one by one. I stood at the kitchen window and watched. Melissa stepped out of the passenger seat of the first SUV. Trevor was driving. Behind them, doors opened and people spilled out. Young, mid-20s maybe. They carried equipment, cameras, tripods, ring lights. One of them had a microphone on a boom pole. I texted Carol Henderson. They're here, 10 people, cameras, trying my door. Carol's response came within seconds. Officer Davis is 2 minutes out. Do not open the door. Let the system work. Trevor walked up to the front door and tried the handle. It didn't turn. He knocked, hard, 3 times. I didn't move. Susan, he called. We know you're in there. Open the door. I watched through the window as he pulled out his phone, typed something, and waited. A moment later, Melissa's phone buzzed. They exchanged a look. Then Trevor walked around the side of the cabin, peering into windows, checking the back door. One of the young women, blonde, wearing a cropped jacket, leaned against the SUV and scrolled through her phone. How long are we supposed to wait? She asked. She'll come out, Melissa said coolly. She always does. Trevor returned to the front porch. He stood there, hands on his hips, staring at the door like he could will it open. Then I heard another vehicle. A marked patrol car rolled up the driveway slowly, deliberately. Officer Davis. He stepped out, adjusting his belt, and walked toward the group with the calm authority of someone who'd done this 100 times before. "Afternoon," Davis said. "I'm Officer Davis, Watauga County Sheriff's Department. I patrol Blue Ridge Estates on Saturdays. Is there a problem here?" Trevor straightened immediately. His whole demeanor shifted, confident, charming, professional. "No problem, officer," he said smoothly. "This is a family matter. My wife's mother owns this property and we're here to visit. We've been trying to reach her, but she's not answering the door." Davis glanced at the group of people with cameras. "That's a lot of visitors for a family matter." "We're documenting a reunion," Trevor said. "Lifestyle content. We do this kind of thing professionally." Davis looked at Melissa. "And you're the daughter?" "Yes," Melissa said. Her voice was sweet, practiced. "My mother just bought this cabin and we wanted to surprise her. I tried calling, but she's not picking up." Davis walked up to the porch and knocked on the door himself. "Mrs. Crawford, this is Officer Davis. Are you all right in there?" I opened the door. Davis nodded politely. "Ma'am, are you expecting these folks?" "No," I said quietly. "I'm not." Trevor stepped forward. "Susan, come on. We talked about this yesterday." I looked at him, then at Melissa. "Melissa," I said, my voice steady and cold. "When you called yesterday and I said, okay, I didn't say it because I agreed. I said it because I wanted you to drive 2 hours up here to understand something very simple." I stepped fully onto the porch. "This cabin has my name on the deed. Yours is nowhere on it." Melissa's face hardened. Trevor opened his mouth, but Davis held up a hand. "Sir, if the property owner says you're not welcome, you need to leave." Trevor's jaw tightened. He glanced at Melissa, then back at Davis. "Officer, I don't think you understand. This property—" "I understand perfectly," Davis said. "Mrs. Crawford owns this cabin. She's asked you to leave. If you refuse, you're trespassing." Trevor reached into his jacket pocket. "Actually, officer, I think you'll find we have legal standing to be here." He didn't pull anything out yet. He just stood there, hand resting on the folded paper inside his jacket, his eyes locked on Davis. Davis's expression didn't change. "Is that so—" The air on the porch felt heavy, tense. Melissa stood behind Trevor, her face unreadable. The group of friends shifted uncomfortably by the vehicles, sensing something was wrong. "Yes," Trevor said slowly. "We do." Davis crossed his arms. "Then I'd like to see it." Trevor pulled a folded document from his jacket pocket and handed it to Officer Davis. "This is a quitclaim deed," Trevor said, his voice steady. "It transfers ownership of this property to the Crawford Family Living Trust. Susan's signature is on it, witnessed and notarized last Friday. My wife and I are the designated trustees." Davis took the document and examined it carefully. It looked professional. Embossed header, heavy cardstock, a notary stamp in red ink, and there at the bottom was a signature that read, "Susan Crawford." I stared at it from the doorway. That wasn't my signature. Davis studied the document for a long moment. Then he pulled a small flashlight from his belt and held it close to the notary's seal, examining it carefully. His brow furrowed. "This is odd," he said slowly. "This notary stamp is from Mecklenburg County, but it's a digital inkjet print, not an embossed seal or fresh ink. You can see the dot pattern if you look closely." He tilted the paper under the light. No texture, no impression, and more importantly, Davis looked up at Trevor. "I just attended a fraud prevention training last week. Rebecca Hartman, the notary listed here, reported her documents and seal stolen 2 months ago. This notary ID was suspended in the state system." Trevor's face went pale. "Officer, there must be some mistake." "No mistake," Davis said flatly. "This is a forged document." Melissa stepped forward, her voice sharp. "That's ridiculous. My mother signed that deed. She agreed to put the property into the family trust." Davis looked at me. "Mrs. Crawford, did you sign this document?" "No," I said. "I did not." Davis keyed his radio. "Dispatch, this is Davis. I need backup at 127 Ridgeline Drive. Possible fraud and trespassing situation." Within minutes, 2 more patrol cars arrived. Officers Hayes and Brooks separated Trevor and Melissa from the group of friends who were now standing by their vehicles, looking confused and uncomfortable. Officer Hayes approached the blonde woman. "Did any of you know what was going on here?" She shook her head quickly. "No. Trevor said we were coming up for a weekend shoot. He paid me $500 to be here. I thought it was just lifestyle content like a family reunion video or something." Hayes raised an eyebrow. "He paid you?" "Yeah, all of us." She gestured to the others. "We didn't know there was this." Another man, mid-20s, holding a camera, spoke up. "I got $300. Trevor said it was a day rate for filming. We thought it was legit." Davis turned back to Trevor and Melissa. "You're both going to leave this property immediately. If you refuse, you'll be arrested for trespassing. Mrs. Crawford has the right to pursue charges for fraud and forgery through the district attorney's office." Trevor opened his mouth, then closed it. His hands were shaking now. Melissa stared at him, her face cold. Then she turned and looked at me through the doorway. Her eyes were empty. "Let's go," she said to Trevor. The group packed up quickly. Cameras, tripods, lights, bags. Within 10 minutes, the 3 vehicles were pulling back down the driveway, gravel crunching under their tires. As they left, Melissa leaned out the passenger window and locked eyes with me one last time. Trevor was on his phone, his knuckles white around the device. Officer Davis stood beside me on the porch, watching them disappear down the mountain road. "Mrs. Crawford," he said quietly, "you need to contact an attorney. Today. This isn't just trespassing. This is organized fraud. And if they were willing to forge a deed, there's likely more." I nodded. I already knew what I was going to do. By the time the last patrol car left, the sun was starting to dip behind the ridgeline. I locked the front door, checked the back, and stood in the middle of the living room, letting the quiet settle around me. It had been 2 hours since Melissa and Trevor drove away, but I kept replaying the moment before they left. Trevor, standing by the driver's door phone, already pressed to his ear. His shoulders hunched, his free hand opening and closing like he was trying to work, feeling back into his fingers. And Melissa, standing beside him, not looking at him, just watching the cabin, watching me through the window. When she'd touched his arm lightly, barely a brush, he'd flinched, then forced himself to relax and climbed into the car. I'd seen that kind of body language before. Someone carrying too much weight, too many things they couldn't say out loud. Trevor wasn't just desperate. He was drowning. I poured myself a glass of water and stood at the kitchen window, looking out at the darkening mountains. My phone sat on the counter beside me, until it buzzed. A text message. Melissa's name. "Melissa, you're making a huge mistake." I stared at the screen. Another message appeared. "Melissa, you don't understand what you're doing to this family. Dad would be so disappointed in you. We've already taken steps to protect what's rightfully ours. This isn't over." My hand tightened around the phone. "Dad would be so disappointed in you." Robert had been gone 6 months and she was using him as a weapon, as if she had any idea what he would have thought. As if he would have wanted this, his daughter showing up with cameras and fake documents trying to take the one thing I'd built with the life insurance he'd left to me. I read the message again, slower this time. "We've already taken steps to protect what's rightfully ours. Already taken steps. Not we're going to. Not we might. Already." I scrolled back to the message she'd sent Friday. The one where she'd demanded to bring 10 people. That was 6 o'clock. Less than 3 hours after I'd arrived at the cabin. They hadn't stumbled into this. They'd planned it. I took a screenshot and opened my messages to Carol Henderson. Carol forwarding a text from my daughter. She's saying they've already taken steps to protect what's rightfully theirs. I'm documenting this. I attached the screenshot and hit send. Carol's reply came back in less than a minute. Carol noted, "If she contacts you again, don't respond. Just screenshot and send to me. If they show up, call 911 first, then me. You did the right thing today." I set the phone down and walked to the front window. The driveway was empty. The road beyond was dark. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still moving. I picked up my phone and reread Melissa's message. "We've already taken steps. Already." What steps? What had they already done? And more importantly, when? Monday morning, 8 o'clock a.m. I was the first person in line when the Watauga County Recorder's office opened. Mrs. Patterson, the clerk behind the counter, greeted me with a polite smile. How can I help you? I need to search property records for 127 Ridgeline Drive, I said, sliding my driver's license across the counter. She typed into her computer, then paused. Her expression shifted. There's a quitclaim deed filed Friday at 3:47 p.m. electronically, she said slowly. It was processed overnight and posted to the public record system early this morning. She turned the monitor toward me. The document on the screen claimed to transfer ownership from Susan Crawford to the Crawford Family Living Trust. I stared at the signature at the bottom. It looked like mine. The slant was right. The loops in the S and C were almost perfect. Almost. I never signed this, I said quietly. That's a forgery. Mrs. Patterson's face went serious. She pulled up the filing receipt and printed it. Submitter name, Trevor Maloney. Submitter email, trevor.business.solutions@digitalconsult.net. Date/time. Filed September 22nd, 2023, 3:47 p.m. I stared at the timestamp. 3:47 p.m. Friday afternoon. Melissa had called me at 6:00 p.m., 2 hours and 13 minutes later. They filed the deed before they even called me. How did they manage to file this so quickly? I asked, my voice trembling. Mrs. Patterson sighed. Mr. Maloney used an intermediary account from a defunct real estate brokerage firm. He stole old login credentials to bypass our e-recording system. The system only checks the parcel number and notary seal presence. It doesn't immediately verify the notary certification. She shook her head. If someone has legitimate-looking credentials and the parcel number matches, the system accepts the filing automatically. I felt sick. Mrs. Patterson placed a fraud alert on the property. No further transactions can be processed without in-person identity verification. But you need to contact an attorney and file a police report immediately. Can you print me copies of everything? Of course. She printed the deed, the filing receipt, the property record showing me as sole owner, and the GIS parcel map confirming 127 Ridgeline Drive corresponded to parcel 3847.09. 1156, the correct number they'd used to slip through the system. I took the stack of papers and walked to my car. I sat in the parking lot staring at the timestamp. 3:47 p.m. They had filed a forged deed to steal my home 2 hours before Melissa called demanding access. The audacity of it was staggering. But what scared me more was the planning, the coordination, the coldness. This wasn't just greed. This was something darker. I pulled out my phone and called Angela Reeves, the real estate attorney Carol Henderson had recommended. She answered on the second ring. Angela Reeves. Ms. Reeves, my name is Susan Crawford. I need help. Someone forged my signature and filed a deed to transfer my property into a fake trust. There was a pause. When did this happen? Friday at 3:47 p.m. I just found out this morning. Have you filed a police report? Not yet. Do that immediately, then come to my office. I'm in Boone. Can you be here by noon? Yes. Bring every document you have, closing papers, deed, the fraudulent filing, everything. Mrs. Crawford. Angela said, her voice firm. This is serious. Forgery, fraud, possibly elder abuse. We're filing an emergency motion for a temporary restraining order and a quiet title action. But I need you to understand this is going to escalate quickly. I looked down at the papers in my lap. 3:47 p.m. They had filed the deed before they even called me. I understand, I said. Good, see you at noon. I hung up and sat there for a moment, staring at the mountains in the distance. They'd tried to take my home, but I wasn't going to let them. By 10 a.m. Monday, I was sitting in Angela Reeves' office in downtown Boone. Angela was in her early 50s with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She reviewed the documents I'd brought, my closing papers, the fraudulent deed, the filing receipt, and her expression darkened. This is textbook fraud, she said. Forged signature, fake notary stamp, electronic filing to avoid in-person scrutiny. They were betting on the system's automation to get this recorded before you found out. Can we stop it? Absolutely. We're filing an emergency motion for a temporary restraining order and a quiet title action today. The TRO will prevent them from contacting you or coming near the property. The quiet title will ask the court to declare that you are the sole legal owner and that the fraudulent deed is void. She paused. But Susan, fraud like this doesn't happen in a vacuum. There's usually more. I'm going to have my investigator run a background check on Trevor Maloney, and I'm contacting your title insurance company. If there's anything else with your name on it, we need to find it now." By 2:00 p.m., Angela's investigator had preliminary results. Trevor Maloney, 2 prior marriages, both ending in divorce within 3 years. Financial disputes in both cases. One ex-wife alleged unauthorized use of her credit cards. Business address, UPS store. Mailbox number 247. Charlotte, LLC. Trevor Business Solutions, registered December 2022. 0 revenue, no employees, no contracts. Current debt, $43. 000 across 7 credit cards, 2 months behind on car lease payments. Eviction notice filed for unpaid rent at Charlotte apartment. Angela looked up from the report. "He's not just struggling, Susan, he's drowning, and desperate people do desperate things." She picked up her phone. "I'm calling the title insurance investigator now. They need to pull metadata from the e-filing vendor and cross-check for any other documents or applications with your name." She dialed. I sat there, hands folded in my lap, listening to one side of the conversation. "This is Angela Reeves. I'm representing Susan Crawford. Yes, 127 Ridgeline Drive, Blowing Rock. We've discovered a fraudulent quitclaim deed filed September 22nd. I need you to pull all metadata and check for any other filings or insurance applications in Mrs. Crawford's name." She listened. Her pen moved across a legal pad. Then her face changed. "When?" she said sharply. She scribbled faster. "And the beneficiary." A pause. "Understood. I need a full copy of that policy, the application, and all payment records. Today." She hung up and looked at me. Her expression was grim. "Susan," she said slowly, "there's something else. Something worse." My stomach dropped. The investigator flagged another document. "I'm waiting for details, but it involves your name, a significant amount of money, and it was filed months before the deed." "What is it?" Angela stood and walked to her window. "I'll know more in an hour. But Susan, whatever this is, it's premeditated. The timeline, the coordination, this isn't opportunistic fraud. This was planned." At 4:32 p.m., my phone buzzed. Voicemail. Trevor. Angela gestured for me to play it on speaker. "Susan, it's Trevor. Look, I think we got off on the wrong foot this weekend. Melissa is your daughter. Family takes care of family, right? You're making this harder than it needs to be. Just think carefully about your next steps. We can work this out. But if you keep pushing, things are going to get complicated. Call me back." The message ended. Angela's jaw tightened. "Save that. Forward it to me. That's intimidation and it's evidence." Her phone rang. She answered immediately. "Yes, I see. Send it now." She hung up and looked at me. "Susan, we need to talk. Right now." Tuesday morning, Angela called me at 9:30 a.m. "Susan, can you come to my office immediately?" Her voice had an edge I hadn't heard before. By 10 a.m., I was sitting across from her. A stack of documents sat on her desk. "The title insurance investigator sent me these last night," Angela said. "Susan, there's a life insurance policy in your name." I stared at her. "What?" She slid the papers across the desk. Policy date, June 15th, 2023. Coverage, amount $500. 000, insured. Susan Marie Crawford, beneficiary. Melissa Crawford, monthly. Premium $485. Payment method, auto debit from joint account. Melissa Crawford and Trevor Maloney. I couldn't breathe. "I never signed this," I whispered. "I know," Angela said. "Look at the application." She pulled out another page. At the bottom was a signature, Susan Crawford. It looked like mine, almost. "They forged it," Angela said, "just like the deed. But this is worse, Susan, much worse. This policy was taken out 3 months before you bought the cabin, 3 months before they tried to take it from you." She flipped to another page. "The application includes your medical information, your primary care doctor, a surgery you had in 2019, your current medications, details only someone close to you would know. Melissa is my emergency contact," I said quietly. "She has access to my medical records." "Exactly, and here's the kicker." Angela pulled out a phone log. The insurance company's notes show a verification call was made to your cell phone on June 18th at 2:15 p.m. Someone answered and confirmed the application details, posing as you. I checked my phone's call history, June 18th, 2:15 p.m. I'd been at my grief counseling session that afternoon. The session ran from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock p.m. I wasn't available to answer, I said. I was in therapy. Angela nodded grimly. Melissa must have set up call forwarding on your phone temporarily. She answered the verification call herself, pretending to be you. Then she turned off the forwarding before you noticed. I felt sick. The policy is what's called a simplified issue policy, Angela continued. It's designed for applicants under 65 who have recent medical records on file. No medical exam required if the coverage is under a certain threshold. Melissa knew exactly what she was doing. She leaned forward. Susan, this policy has been active since June. Premiums have been paid every month, $485, automatically deducted from a joint bank account Melissa shares with Trevor. They've paid nearly $2,500 so far. What? I asked. Why would they do this? Angela's voice was careful. Because if something happened to you, Melissa would receive $500,000, tax-free. The room felt too small. They tried to take my home, I said slowly. And if that didn't work, they had a backup plan, Angela finished. She picked up her phone. I'm calling the insurance company right now to report fraud, and I'm adding this to our motion. The court needs to see the full picture, the deed, the policy, the timeline. This isn't just fraud, Susan. This is conspiracy, premeditation. She dialed. While she talked, I stared at the policy date, June 15th, 2023, 3 months before I bought the cabin. 3 months before Melissa called and demanded to bring 10 people to my home. 3 months before they showed up with cameras and a forged deed. They'd been planning this since summer, and I was never supposed to find out. Angela hung up. The insurance company is opening a fraud investigation immediately. They're freezing the policy and flagging Melissa's account. She looked at me. Susan, I'm filing for an emergency TRO hearing tomorrow. We're going to court and we're going to stop this. I nodded, but all I could think about was that number. 500万美元. I was worth more to them gone than alive. Wednesday morning, September 27th, the emergency TRO hearing was held in Judge Sullivan's courtroom. Melissa and Trevor sat at separate tables, each with their own attorney. Trevor wore the same ill-fitting suit from Saturday. Melissa wore a navy dress and kept her face carefully neutral. Angela presented our evidence first: the forged deed, the fake notary seal, the stolen login credentials, the threatening voicemail from Trevor. Judge Sullivan listened intently, taking notes. Then Angela stood. Your Honor, there's additional evidence we need to present. Evidence that demonstrates premeditation and coordination. She held up a printed transcript. On October 1st, pursuant to probable cause established by the forged deed and threatening communications, the Watauga County Sheriff's Department executed a search warrant on the defendant's residence. They seized Ms. Crawford's laptop and obtained a court order to access her iCloud account. Angela paused. Digital forensics recovered a voice recording from July 18, 2023, 2 months before Mrs. Crawford purchased the cabin. The file was labeled Trevor Backup. She looked at Melissa. It appears Ms. Crawford secretly recorded a private conversation with Mr. Maloney. Based on the content and the file name, we believe this recording was kept as leverage, a form of blackmail to ensure Mr. Maloney's compliance with the scheme. Judge Sullivan leaned forward. Play it. Angela pressed a button on her laptop. The courtroom speakers crackled to life. Recording begins. Melissa's voice calm and cold. Listen, Trevor, I've already handled the hard part, forging the signature and making the insurance verification call. All you have to do is take care of the property paperwork. Once she's settled in that isolated cabin, everything will be easier. Just be patient. She won't see what's coming. Trevor's voice nervous. Melissa, I don't know if I can keep doing this. Melissa cutting him off sharply. You don't have a choice. You're $43,000 in debt. You're 2 months behind on your car payment. Your landlord is about to evict you. I'm the only thing keeping you afloat. So yes, you can. And you will. Pause. And Trevor, I'm recording this call so you understand we're in this together. If you ever try to back out or turn on me, I have this. I have your emails. I have everything. You mess this up and you go down alone. Trevor quietly, what if she finds out? Melissa, she won't. She won't see it coming. Recording ends. The courtroom was silent. Melissa's face didn't change. She stared straight ahead, her jaw tight. Trevor, sitting at the other table, put his head in his hands. Judge Sullivan set down her pen. Ms. Crawford, you recorded this conversation without Mr. Maloney's knowledge. Melissa's attorney started to stand, but Melissa spoke first. Yes. Her voice was flat, no emotion. Why, Melissa tilted her head slightly. Insurance. Judge Sullivan's expression hardened. This court grants the temporary restraining order. Ms. Crawford and Mr. Maloney are prohibited from contacting Mrs. Susan Crawford or coming within 500 feet of her property. A preliminary hearing will be scheduled within 10 days to address criminal charges. She looked directly at Melissa. Ms. Crawford, you orchestrated fraud forgery and elder financial abuse. You documented your own conspiracy, and you blackmailed your co-conspirator to ensure his silence. The district attorney will be notified immediately. The bailiff approached. Melissa stood slowly still, expressionless. As she was led out, she turned and looked at me one last time. No anger, no fear, just cold calculation. Angela touched my arm as we stood to leave. There's more, Susan. The forensics team found something else on her laptop. What? A blog, private, password protected, 17 entries detailing the entire plan. I closed my eyes. We'll go through it this afternoon, Angela said quietly. But Susan, this wasn't impulsive. She's been planning this since your husband died. Friday, October 1st, late afternoon. After the TRO hearing on Wednesday, the Watauga County Sheriff's Department had executed the search warrant on Melissa and Trevor's apartment in Charlotte. They'd seized Melissa's laptop, Trevor's phone, and obtained court orders to access their cloud accounts. Angela called me Friday afternoon. Susan, can you come by my office? The forensics team found something. By 5:00 p.m., I was sitting in her conference room. Angela had her laptop open, and on the screen was a blog. A private blog, password protected, titled Project Independence. 17 entries, Angela said. April through September 2023, written by Melissa. She clicked on the first entry. April 14th, 2023. Mom got the life insurance payout today. $250,000 plus the savings Dad left another $150,000. That's $400,000 total. She doesn't deserve it. Dad worked for 30 years to build that wealth, and she's going to waste it on some ridiculous fresh start. She contributed nothing. She was just there, a placeholder. I won't let that happen. That money is mine. Angela clicked to the next entry, June 9th, 2023. Trevor found a property Mom's looking at, a cabin in the mountains, isolated, no neighbors for half a mile. Perfect. If she buys it, we can use that. Trevor's handling the legal side. He says there's a way to transfer ownership quietly if we time it right. Another click, July 20th, 2023. Trevor's getting nervous. I can see it. He's weak. So I recorded our conversation 2 days ago just in case. He doesn't know, of course. But now I have insurance. If he tries to back out or if things go wrong, I can prove he was involved from the beginning. He signed the emails. He'll file the deed. His fingerprints will be all over this. I'm safe. Another click. September 15th, 2023, the day I closed on the cabin. Everything's in place. The deed is ready. The policy is active and paid up. Trevor's confident about the paperwork. By this time next year, I'll be living in that cabin and she'll be a memory. I felt nothing. Not shock, not anger, just a cold, hollow awareness. Angela scrolled down. There are more entries about the plan, about how she justified it to herself about Trevor's desperation. She knew he was drowning financially, and she used that. She closed the laptop. The forensics team also pulled Trevor's financial records. He wasn't just in debt, he was on the edge of total collapse. The $43,000 in credit card debt we already knew about. But there's more. He'd been borrowing from friends, family, even payday loan services. His LLC had zero income. He'd been faking invoices, creating fake client emails to show Melissa he was working. She pulled out a spreadsheet. Melissa's blog income was around $3,000 a month. Trevor had access to that account. He'd been withdrawing almost all of it every month to cover his debts. She knew. She let him. Because she needed him desperate enough to go along with her plan. Angela looked at me. Susan, this wasn't just opportunistic. Melissa has been planning this since your husband died. The life insurance, the cabin, the timing. She saw an opportunity and she built a plan around it. I stared out the window at the Boone skyline. The sun was setting behind the mountains. I didn't lose a daughter, I said quietly. Angela didn't respond because she knew it was true. I'd never had one. The preliminary hearing began on Friday, October 6th. The courtroom was packed. Local media had picked up the story, daughter accused of forging documents to steal mother's cabin, and the gallery was full. Melissa sat at the defense table beside her attorney, Caroline Warren. Trevor sat separately flanked by his own lawyer. He'd taken a plea deal 2 days earlier, 4 years in exchange for full cooperation. Judge Sullivan called the court to order. Mr. Maloney, she said, you may take the stand. Trevor stood slowly. He looked smaller than he had in September. His suit didn't fit quite right anymore, and his hands trembled as he was sworn in. Angela Reeves stood and approached the witness stand. Mr. Maloney, in September 2023, what was your financial situation? Trevor swallowed. I was in debt. About $43,000 across 7 credit cards. I was 2 months behind on my car lease. I'd received an eviction notice from my apartment in Charlotte. And your business, Trevor Business Solutions. It wasn't real, he admitted quietly. I registered the LLC in December 2022, but I never had any clients. No revenue. It was just a name, a website. I thought if I could fake it long enough, something would work out. But it didn't. No. Angela walked closer. Mr. Maloney, on September 22, 2023, at 3:47 p.m., you filed a quitclaim deed electronically with the Watauga County Recorder's Office. That deed claimed to transfer Susan Crawford's property into the Crawford Family Living Trust. Why did you use your business email to file it? Trevor's voice cracked. Melissa told me to. She said it would look more legitimate, more professional because it had business in the name. She said the county office would process it faster if it came from a business account. And you believed her. I was desperate, Trevor said. I thought it was just paperwork, administrative. She told me Susan would sign off on it later, that this was just a preliminary step to save time. But Susan never signed anything, did she? No. Who forged her signature? Trevor looked at Melissa. Her face was stone, cold. Melissa did, he said. She had access to old documents from when Robert was alive. Tax returns, legal papers. She used software Photoshop, I think, to replicate Susan's signature. She showed me the draft and said it looked perfect. Angela's tone sharpened. And you didn't think to stop her. Trevor's hands clenched. I should have. But she told me it was legal. That the trust was something Robert had set up years ago and Susan just needed to finalize it. She said we were helping the family. Helping the family, Angela repeated. By forging legal documents. I know how it sounds, Trevor said quietly, but I was drowning. Melissa promised that once the cabin was in the trust, we'd have a place to stay, a base. She said her mother didn't need it, that Susan was wasting Robert's money on a grief project. Mr. Maloney, who came up with the plan, Trevor hesitated. Mr. Maloney, Judge Sullivan said firmly, you are under oath. Trevor looked down. Melissa. She planned everything. The deed, the timing. She even found the old parcel number from one of Robert's engineering projects and told me to use it. She said it would look more authentic. And the life insurance policy on Susan's life. Trevor's voice was barely a whisper. That was Melissa, too. She took it out in June, 3 months before Susan bought the cabin. Did you know about it? Not at first. She told me about it in July, said it was protection. I asked her what that meant. She just smiled and said, in case something happens. The courtroom was silent. Angela turned to the judge. Your Honor, the state would like to introduce evidence of premeditation. The timeline alone: life insurance in June, cabin purchase in September, deed filed 2 hours before the phone call demonstrates a calculated, coordinated plan. Judge Sullivan nodded. Noted. Ms. Crawford's attorney you may cross-examine. Caroline Warren stood. She walked toward Trevor slowly. Mr. Maloney, you've testified that you were manipulated, that you were desperate, that you didn't understand what you were doing. That's true. But you're a businessman, aren't you? You registered an LLC. You created a website. You understand legal processes. You filed the deed yourself, Warren continued. You used your email. You paid people to come to the cabin with cameras. You told Officer Davis that you had legal standing. Does that sound like someone who didn't understand? Trevor's face crumbled. I wanted to believe her. I wanted it to be real. Warren stared at him. Or you wanted the money. Trevor didn't answer. Judge Sullivan looked at Melissa. Ms. Crawford, you will testify on Monday. Court is adjourned until 9 a.m. October 9th. As the bailiff led Melissa out, she turned and looked at me. Her eyes were empty, but her mask was cracking. If you're still here, let me know in the comments. Before I tell you what my daughter said when she finally took the stand, what do you think she does next? Deny everything or let the truth come out? Leave your thoughts below so I know you're still with me. Quick note, the next part includes some dramatized elements for storytelling and educational purposes. If that's not for you, feel free to stop here. Monday, October 9th, Melissa took the stand. She wore a navy blazer and her hair pulled back. She looked calm, composed, almost sympathetic. Her attorney, Caroline Warren, began with softballs. Questions about her childhood, her relationship with Robert, her grief after his death. Melissa played the part well. Her voice cracked at the right moments. She dabbed her eyes when talking about her father. Then Angela Reeves stood for cross-examination. Ms. Crawford. Angela said, you've painted yourself as a grieving daughter, but let's talk about what you actually did. Angela held up a printed document. This is a voice memo recovered from your iCloud account through a subpoena issued by the title insurance investigator. It's dated July 18th, 2023, 2 months before your mother bought the cabin. Would you like me to play it for the court? Melissa's face didn't change. Go ahead. Angela pressed play. Melissa's voice filled the courtroom, cold, calculated. The cabin is the key. Once she's moved in and isolated, it'll be easier. Trevor's handling the paperwork. We just have to be patient. She won't see it coming. The recording ended. The courtroom was silent. What did you mean by she won't see it coming? Angela asked. Melissa smiled, a small, cold smile. Exactly what it sounds like. Angela pulled out another document. This is your private blog titled Project Independence. 17 entries between April and September 2023. Let me read a few excerpts. She flipped through the pages. April 14th. Mom got the life insurance payout, $250,000, plus the savings another $150,000. That's $400,000 total. She doesn't deserve it. Dad built that wealth and she's going to waste it on some ridiculous fresh start. I won't let that happen. Angela looked up. You didn't think your mother deserved the money your father left her? No, Melissa said simply. I didn't. Angela continued. June 9th. Trevor found a property she's looking at, a cabin in the mountains. Perfect. Isolated, no neighbors close by. We can make this work. September 15th. Angela read her voice sharp. The day your mother closed on the cabin. Everything's in place. The deed is ready. The policy is active. By this time next year, I'll be living in that cabin and she'll be a memory. Angela set the pages down. A memory, Ms. Crawford. What did you mean by that? Melissa's smile widened. I meant exactly what you think I meant. The courtroom erupted. Judge Sullivan banged her gavel. Order. Angela stepped closer. You forged a quit-claim deed. You took out a life insurance policy on your mother without her knowledge or consent. You listed yourself as the sole beneficiary. The policy was worth $500,000. What were you planning to do, Ms. Crawford? Melissa leaned back in her chair. Her composure finally cracked, not into fear, but into rage. My father worked for 30 years, she said, her voice rising. He built that $400,000, every single cent of it, the life insurance, the savings, all of it. She pointed at me, did nothing. A placeholder, a gatekeeper who happened to be married to him. My father should have left everything to me. Angela's voice was calm. Your father left the life insurance to your mother because she was his wife. Melissa's eyes blazed. He made a mistake. She should have died instead of him. The courtroom went silent. I sat in the gallery and felt nothing, not shock, not pain, just a deep, hollow acceptance. Judge Sullivan leaned forward. Ms. Crawford, do you understand that you have just confessed to conspiracy to commit fraud, elder, financial abuse, and potentially conspiracy to commit harm? Melissa didn't blink. I didn't do anything wrong. I was just taking back what was mine. Caroline Warren put her head in her hands. Judge Sullivan's voice was ice. Ms. Crawford, you are remanded into custody without bail. A trial date will be set within 90 days. Bailiff, take her into custody. As Melissa was led away in handcuffs, she turned and looked at me one last time. Her face was cold, defiant. I didn't look away, but I didn't feel anything either. Angela touched my arm gently as we stood to leave. It's over. I nodded, but I knew the truth. This was just the paperwork. The weeks after Melissa's confession blurred together. October bled into November, then December, then January. The legal system moved slowly, methodically building a case piece by piece. In late October, Trevor was offered a plea deal, 4 years in prison in exchange for his full cooperation and testimony against Melissa. His attorney advised him to take it. The alternative was 10 to 15 years if he went to trial alongside her. He took the deal. Angela called me the day he signed. Trevor allocuted this morning. He admitted to everything, the forged deed, the fake business, helping Melissa set up the insurance policy. He gave the prosecution a full timeline of how it all started. He'll serve 4 years, no parole eligibility for 2. And Melissa, she was offered deals 3 separate times. 5 years with parole after 3, 7 years with parole after 4, even 10 years with parole eligibility after 6. She refused all of them. Why, Angela was quiet for a moment. Because she doesn't think she did anything wrong. She genuinely believes she was protecting her father's legacy. She wants a trial. She thinks she can convince a jury that you manipulated Robert, that the money was always meant for her. I closed my eyes. Even now, even after everything Melissa believed her own story. Through November and December, the prosecution built its case. Caroline Warren called me twice for interviews, walking me through the evidence timeline. Angela sat in on the meetings, taking notes. We reviewed the forged deed with Trevor's email signature, the life insurance policy with my forged signature, the voice memo, the blog entries, Melissa's confession in open court. It should have been overwhelming. But by then, I'd already processed most of it. I'd already grieved. In early January, Angela called with unexpected news. One of the people who came to the cabin with Melissa that day reached out to the prosecutor's office, a woman named Amber. She's willing to testify. What did she say? Trevor paid her $500 to come along that Saturday. He told her it was for a family intervention video that you were struggling after your husband's passing, and they were documenting a supportive family visit to help you through grief. She had no idea about the fraud until she saw the news coverage in October. I felt a flicker of anger. Even the people Melissa had brought were part of the performance. Paid props for a staged confrontation. 2 others from the group came forward within a week, Angela continued. A man named Brandon and a woman named Jess. Same story. Trevor paid them each $300. He told them it was content for Melissa's lifestyle brand that they were filming a wholesome family reunion. None of them knew about the forged deed or the insurance policy. They're all willing to testify that Trevor and Melissa misrepresented the purpose of the visit. The pieces kept falling into place. By February, the media coverage had intensified. Local news stations ran evening segments, daughter accused of plotting to take mother's cabin and life insurance. I stopped watching after the 3rd one. Angela and I met twice a week at her office in Boone to prepare for trial. She'd sit across from me with a notepad and fire questions. How long had I been married to Robert? When did Melissa's behavior start to change? Did I ever suspect she was capable of fraud? "You're going to be asked about your relationship with Melissa," Angela said one afternoon in late February, "about whether you ever suspected she could do something like this." What should I say? The truth. I thought about that for a long time. The truth was, I'd ignored signs for years. The entitlement, the resentment whenever I spent money on myself instead of her. The way Melissa had always kept score, what I'd done for her, what she thought I owed her, what she believed she deserved, simply for being Robert's daughter. I told myself it was a phase, that she'd grow out of it. I'd been wrong. On February 28th, Angela called. "Trial's set, March 4th, 5 days, maybe 6. "Okay. Susan," her voice softened, "are you ready?" I looked out the window of the cabin, snow on the ridges, smoke rising from a neighbor's chimney, the mountains quiet and still. I've been ready since September. The Watauga County Courthouse felt different on March 4th, colder. The marble floors echoed with every footstep, and the security checkpoint seemed tighter than it had been during the preliminary hearing. This wasn't just paperwork anymore. This was a trial. Day 1 began with jury selection. 12 people, 6 men, 6 women were chosen to decide whether my daughter had tried to steal my home and my life. Judge Sullivan's voice was steady as she explained the charges: forgery, elder financial abuse insurance fraud, conspiracy, and attempted fraud. Melissa sat at the defense table beside her attorney, Rachel Montgomery, wearing a navy dress and an expression I didn't recognize. Not anger, not fear, just nothing. The prosecution's opening statement was delivered by Caroline Warren. She didn't waste time. The evidence will show that Melissa Crawford planned for months to take everything her mother had, and if necessary, to make sure her mother wasn't around to stop her. Rachel Montgomery's opening was softer. She painted Melissa as a grieving daughter who had made poor decisions after losing her father. Grief can make us act in ways we never imagined. I sat in the gallery and said nothing. Day 2 was all documents. The prosecution presented the quit-claim deed, the one filed electronically at 3:47 p.m. on September 22nd, just 2 hours before Melissa called me. The email address tied to the filing was displayed on a screen, trevor.business.solutions@digitalconsult.net. A forensic document examiner testified that my signature had been forged. She pointed to the pressure points, the inconsistent slant, the digital artifacts that proved it had been fabricated. Rachel Montgomery suggested the signature could have been a mistake. The expert didn't budge. This was intentional forgery. Day 3 brought the life insurance policy. $500,000 my name. Melissa listed as the sole beneficiary. The policy had been taken out on June 15, 2023, 3 months before I even bought the cabin. The premiums, $485 a month, had been automatically deducted from a joint account held by Melissa and Trevor. Then Trevor took the stand. He looked smaller than he had in September. His hands shook as he was sworn in. Under questioning, he admitted everything: the debt, the desperation, the plan. "Melissa told me it was rightfully hers," he said quietly. "She said her father would have wanted her to have it," Caroline Warren pressed. "And the life insurance policy, Mr. Maloney, what was that for?" Trevor's voice cracked. "In case something happened to Susan." The courtroom went silent. Day 4 was the day everything fell apart for Melissa. The prosecution played the voice memo from July, Melissa's own voice, cold and calculated. "The cabin is the key. Once she's moved in and isolated, it'll be easier. Trevor's handling the paperwork. We just have to be patient. She won't see it coming." Then came the blog entries, 17 posts from Project Independence, written between April and September. The jury heard every word. "Mom doesn't deserve the money." And the final entry dated September 15th. "By this time next year, I'll be living in that cabin and she'll be a memory." Amber testified next. She explained how Trevor had paid her $500 to come to the cabin, claiming it was for a family intervention video. Brandon and Jess corroborated her story. Day 5 was mine. I took the stand and answered every question. I described the phone call on September 22nd, the discovery at the county recorder's office, the forged deed, the insurance policy I never signed. I didn't cry, I didn't break, I just told the truth. Rachel Montgomery tried to paint me as vindictive. I looked at her and said, "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because my daughter tried to erase me." Closing arguments were brief. Caroline Warren reminded the jury of the timeline, the evidence, the intent. Rachel Montgomery asked for mercy, claiming Melissa had been manipulated by grief. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. When they returned, the foreperson stood. "We find the defendant guilty on all counts." Melissa didn't react. She just stared straight ahead. Judge Sullivan set sentencing for May 2nd. I walked out of that courtroom and felt nothing. Not relief, not vindication, just done. 2 months after the verdict, I walked back into the Watauga County Courthouse. The marble floors felt familiar now. The security checkpoint was routine. This was the last time I'd have to be in the same room as Melissa. May 2nd, sentencing day. The courtroom was quieter this time. No media, no crowd. Just the people who mattered: Judge Sullivan, Caroline Warren, Rachel Montgomery, Angela. Beside me in the gallery. And Melissa standing at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, her hands cuffed in front of her. Trevor sat in the defendant's area as well, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, his hands cuffed tightly to a metal ring on the table in front of him. He'd begun serving his sentence 2 months ago and had only been transported here to hear the final sentencing alongside his co-conspirator. His eyes were empty, staring down at the floor. Judge Sullivan began by reviewing the pre-sentence investigation report. The findings were clear. Melissa had shown no remorse during her interviews with the probation officer. She had blamed me for everything. According to the report, she believed her father's money and property should have been hers from the beginning, and that I had stolen what was rightfully hers by being his wife. Caroline Warren stood first. "Your Honor, the state recommends the maximum sentence of 12 years. Ms. Crawford's actions were not impulsive. They were planned over months. She forged legal documents. She took out a life insurance policy on her own mother with clear intent. She recruited her husband to assist. And even now, after being convicted by a jury, she refuses to take responsibility." Rachel Montgomery rose next. Her tone was softer, almost pleading. "Your Honor, Ms. Crawford is young. She's a first-time offender. She made terrible decisions after losing her father, but she deserves a chance to rebuild her life. We ask the court for leniency." Judge Sullivan looked at me. "Mrs. Crawford, you have the opportunity to make a victim impact statement. Would you like to address the court?" I shook my head. "I have nothing more to say to her." The judge nodded. Then she turned to Melissa. "Ms. Crawford," Judge Sullivan said, her voice steady and cold, "you orchestrated a calculated conspiracy to defraud your own mother. You forged a quitclaim deed and filed it electronically, attempting to transfer property that was never yours. You took out a life insurance policy in your mother's name without her knowledge or consent and listed yourself as the sole beneficiary. The policy was worth $500,000, and the premiums were paid from an account you shared with your husband." Melissa's face didn't change. "You recruited others to assist you," the judge continued. "You documented your intent in a private blog. You recorded a conversation in which you stated, and I quote, 'She won't see it coming.' You showed no hesitation, no doubt. And even now, after a jury found you guilty on all counts, you have shown no remorse. You have taken no responsibility. You continue to blame your mother for choices that were entirely yours." Judge Sullivan paused. "This court finds your actions contemptible." The courtroom was silent. On the charges of forgery, elder financial abuse, insurance fraud, conspiracy, and attempted fraud, I sentence you to 8 to 12 years in state prison. You will be eligible for parole after serving 6 years. Melissa blinked. Once. That was all. "Mr. Maloney," the judge added, "per your plea agreement, you are sentenced to 4 years. You have already begun serving your sentence." Trevor didn't react. He kept his eyes on the floor. The bailiff stepped forward. Melissa was led toward the side door, but before she disappeared, she turned her head and looked directly at me. Her eyes were cold, empty. I didn't look away, but I didn't feel anything either. She was led out. Angela touched my arm gently as we stood. "Now you can rebuild your life." I gathered my coat and walked toward the door. The late afternoon sun was streaming through the courthouse windows. I already did. Thanksgiving morning arrived quietly. The cabin smelled like rosemary and butter, and the mountains outside my window were brushed with gold. I'd spent the early hours preparing a small meal, nothing elaborate, just roasted chicken, sweet potatoes, and green beans. Enough for one, maybe two if someone stopped by. I wasn't expecting company. But around noon, I heard a car pull up the gravel drive. I looked out the kitchen window and saw Carol Henderson climbing out of her SUV carrying a pie. "I didn't want you spending today alone," she said when I opened the door. I smiled. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," she said, handing me the pumpkin pie. "But I wanted to." We ate on the wraparound porch. The air was cool but not cold, and the late November light turned everything soft and golden. Carol talked about her grandkids, about a minor dispute in the neighborhood over holiday decorations, about a new hiking trail she'd found near Grandfather Mountain. I listened, asked questions, laughed when she told me about her youngest grandson's attempt to cook mac and cheese in the microwave without water. It was easy, comfortable. At 3:47 p.m., my phone buzzed on the table between us. I glanced at the screen. Caller ID Correctional Facility. The phone rang once, twice. Carol looked at me. "You gonna answer that?" I picked up the phone, stared at the screen for a moment, and then pressed the red button. Not decline, block. Carol didn't say anything. She just nodded and took another sip of her coffee. I set the phone face down on the table and looked out at the mountains. 14 months ago, at this exact time, 3:47 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, Trevor had filed a forged deed in my name. That was the moment the nightmare began. The moment I didn't know my life was being stolen out from under me. And now, at 3:47 p.m. on a Thursday afternoon in November, Melissa had tried to call. I didn't know what she wanted. An apology, forgiveness, money for commissary. It didn't matter. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I just didn't want to hear her voice. For a long time, I thought blood made family. I thought that because Melissa came from me, because I'd raised her and sacrificed for her, that meant we were bound. That love was automatic. That I owed her something simply because she was mine. I was wrong. Family isn't about blood. It's about the people who show up, the people who respect your boundaries, the people who don't demand pieces of you to prove love. Carol showed up today with a pie because she didn't want me to be alone. Angela showed up in my darkest hour and fought for me. Officer Davis showed up on a Saturday afternoon and made sure I was safe. Melissa showed up with cameras and a forged deed and a life insurance policy. I spent so much time afraid of being alone, afraid of what it would mean if my daughter didn't love me, afraid of the silence, the empty rooms, the holidays spent by myself. But I wasn't alone today, and even if I had been, I would have been fine. Because I finally understood I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of being with the wrong people. Carol reached across the table and clinked her coffee mug against mine. "To freedom," she said softly. I looked at her, this woman who had helped me when she didn't have to, who had called Officer Davis, who had stood beside me through depositions and hearings and trials, who was here now on Thanksgiving because she knew what it meant to choose your family. I lifted my mug. To peace. The mountains stretched out before us, endless and quiet. The sun was beginning to dip below the ridge, casting long shadows across the porch. Wood smoke curled from the chimney. The air smelled like pine and autumn and home. I wasn't lonely. I was free. Looking back on everything that happened, the betrayal, the forged documents, the life insurance policy, with my name on it, I see now what I couldn't see then. I thought love meant giving everything. I thought being a good mother meant never saying no. I was wrong. Don't be like me. Don't wait until someone tries to steal your home to realize you never set boundaries. Don't sacrifice your peace to keep people comfortable who wouldn't protect yours. These family drama stories aren't rare. I spent years believing that because Melissa was my daughter, I owed her endless chances. I thought God wanted me to forgive without limits. But God also gave me the wisdom to recognize when someone isn't safe and the strength to walk away. The grandma stories you hear about daughters or sons who manipulate, who steal, who try to control, they often share the same lesson. Love without boundaries isn't love. It's self-destruction. If you're living through family drama stories like mine, ask yourself, am I being loved or am I being used? God doesn't ask us to be doormats. He asks us to be wise. I've listened to too many grandma stories where women stayed silent, gave everything, and lost themselves. I learned that chosen family can be just as real as blood family, sometimes more. I learned that peace is worth protecting even if it costs you relationships. So here's what I learned from these family drama stories. Protect your peace, set your boundaries, and don't apologize for choosing yourself. In all the grandma stories I've heard, the ones who found peace were often the ones who finally said no. God gave you one life. Don't spend it proving your worth to people who've already decided you're not enough. Final note. This content contains dramatized storytelling elements for educational purposes. Some details are fictionalized, but the lessons and messages may be helpful. If this style doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. Please seek content that better suits your needs.